saw him today.
Who? How can you be sure it was really him?
I watched the movie yesterday and I loved it. So much that I'm going to watch it again tonight. Because I feel like it's a movie you have to watch with a crowd.
We just said
Literally
that.
just said that.
And then you have to watch twice.
Yeah, I don't know if you have seen any movie here, but the crowd in Sitges Festival is very wild. So yeah, it's going to
Well, this is that kind of movie. I'm very excited.
Yes.
Yay! That's why we do this, to see the audience reaction.
Damien, this is the third movie in this franchise. The first two movies are set during Halloween, but this one is different.
Yeah.
It's during
Christmas. Yeah.
Why did you choose that? And also, how did you make something like Christmas so scary?
Well, I always loved the Christmas horror subgenre. Ever since I was a kid, some of my favorite horror movies, Black Christmas. In particular, there's Tales from the Crypt episode called And All Through the House about a maniac Santa Claus. That was pretty much the template for what I wanted, the vibe that I wanted to create for this film. And I don't think art should be beholden to Halloween, although Halloween's my favorite holiday. But I wanted to just keep every movie I want to be fresh. I want to have a different atmosphere, a different vibe. And I can't even really fully take credit for Christmas. One day we were shooting Terrifier 2, and I was with my producer, Phil Falcone, and we were driving to set during Christmas time. So there were decorations everywhere, and it was a long 4-hour car drive, and he just said, wow, what is like, we should think about putting Art the Clown in Christmas one day. That would be interesting. And it just immediately clicked because of how much I love that genre and how he would be amazing in that environment. Just all those Christmas movie tropes that aren't horror movie based, but that you can now put him in, like being a mall Santa, and he's already carrying that giant sack of goodies, you know. So it just seems so perfect and genuine and organic, and that's what this franchise is. It's got to feel genuine. It can't be forced. So I knew that would work.
Do you think you're going to explore more
holidays?
Yeah, holidays.
I don't know. I don't think that's going to become a gimmick for sure. But if you never know when inspiration's going to hit, and I'm like, 4th of July or President's Day, Arbor Day,
Trees.
I read that many people left screenings of this movie in the opening scene because it's very brutal. Are you proud of that?
Very.
That's what you like
and
doing.
Yeah, special effects, special makeup effects, validation. Because really, I think that gets overshadowed a lot. People just say, "Oh, this movie's violent." It's like, no. I mean, this is intent. This is beautiful artistry and talent that goes into creating this, and between that and the magic of editing that elicits that response from the audience, you know, it's not easy to do on that level. Especially, there's so many horror movies. You know, you've been dealing with intense graphic horror movies for 50 years now. So to be able to create something new for the audience and still elicit that response, you know, it's something to be proud of.
Do you have any favorite death in this movie?
Yeah, my favorite one is the Santa Claus snowman death. That was a fun one for me. I was very excited about.
Yeah. He's excited to see it. He's excited to see
That might
himself.
be your favorite.
Yeah.
It's not the one that made you sick.
No, that was definitely not my favorite one. But no, I just had that. I thought that was just a fun, creative kill. It made me feel like a Batman villain as well. So I was like, I love this. When I first read that in the oh yeah, it was when I read in the script the first time. I was like, oh, I can't wait to do this one. This is gonna be a lot of fun.
I think the other day I was saying, oh, the chainsaw, but then the opening, and now I'm like the opening. The opening is really my favorite. I think Chrissy is amazing. I know they kill children in the opening, but yeah, and I shouldn't like that. That's not the part that I love. I think Chrissy's unbelievable in the way that she works with Dave and that whole sequence and how it's directed. It just is so satisfying, and that's the opening of the movie and it just sets it up perfectly. Yeah.
It feels like a short film.
Yeah.
I love that. Opposite to Sam, I actually like the child's death. But the reason why I like it.
Why is that? Expand.
She's gonna be a great mom.
The reason why I like it is because it's so opposite of what we've done in Terrifier. It's you just hear it. And it's visceral, and the imagination of it all, because we get so much beautiful practical effects, and it affected me in a very different way. I was like I actually cringed, and I don't necessarily cringe at the practical effects anymore. I'm just in awe of them. So that really affected me. So I think that might be why it's my favorite.
For me, it's a chainsaw scene.
Oh, well, I don't have a problem hearing that.
Yeah.
On a technical level, that's my favorite. But I have to agree. I'm very proud of the opening 10 minutes, and especially the different direction that I wanted to go in with the first murder, which is you only hear it. And that's the complete opposite of Terrifier. Terrifier is just excess in your face. We show you everything, and I want to say, I want to sort of subvert expectations and see if I can just get away with just the beauty of sound design in this scene and make it as effective. And it gets these wonderful gasps at every screening. So
It's
proud,
great. It's a great moment. It's a great moment.
What makes Art the Clown so terrifying is that he finds humor in the most terrifying things, the most brutal things. So as an actor, how do you play both sides, like the comedy and horror, to make the character believable?
Oh, what helped me really solidify that in my head was when I read the script for the first film the first time. There's a line the cat lady has where she says he's doing this because he thinks it's funny. And I'm like, oh, that's the whole essence of the character right there. He's not doing any of this out of revenge or anything like that. He's just doing this because it's pure entertainment for himself. And I'm like, that's scarier to me. Because, like, you know,
Stop it!
He's like scary to say.
He thinks it's funny. But that's the thing. It's scary to me because, you know, it's like that's... So it's coming from a very inhuman place where you're not supposed to find that kind of violence and that kind of just horrific act funny. It's the opposite of what you should be feeling, and that's what makes him just so evil and sadistic in my mind. He's performing for an audience of one the whole entire time. He's not performing for anybody else. He's always performing for himself. He's whatever's going to entertain him. He's gonna, and that's just wrong.
Is it difficult for you to play that role because you have zero dialogue and you only rely only on physicality, or is it easier for you?
It's pretty easy for me. But it's because I have a strong background in physical comedy, and I've always wanted to play a character like that. I'm a huge Mr. Bean fan, especially, and I had always wanted to play a Mr. Bean-like mischievous character like that. And my whole entire life I did a lot of physical comedy, especially children's theater, and I was like, I would love to play a character like. So when I saw All Hallows Eve, before I even knew about the audition for Terrifier, I was like, oh, I like that character. He's like an evil Mr. Bean. There's so much I could do with that type of character one day. What a fun twist to play on a horror villain. And lo and behold, this audition came up, and I was able to audition for him, and I was like, this is going to be my chance. I can do something interesting. So I love it. I love that challenge because it's, I don't, of course I don't have lines, but I make up my own dialogue or monologues even sometimes in my head, so I have something to go off of. So I can play all the different beats that are necessary for the scenes, and it just helps make some of my expressions naturally happen. I sometimes make expressions I don't even know I'm making, and he's like, Dave, do that again. I'm like, what did I do? I don't know. He's like, no, you made this face. I'm like, oh. I was like, great, okay, I'll try.
Wonderful faces in part 3, some of my favorite. He's got 3 of my favorite scenes that he's ever had in the entire franchise in this one.
I love when he sees Santa Claus from outside the window.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh yeah, I was channeling Will Ferrell's character in Elf. Just like, that's what I was thinking.
Lauren, your character Sienna is a badass. I love her, and I love that she's a modern final girl. Like, she's a warrior and she fights back. And we saw that when we met her in the second movie. But did you approach the character differently now that you have played her for a longer time, or that because it's also 5 years later? Was it different for you to play that character again?
Well, yeah, it was definitely different, but yes and no in terms of the approach for her, because for Terrifier 2, I did extensive research, journaling, collaborating with Damien, deciding like who she was. But this time I didn't necessarily have to do that. It was like putting on like an old jacket or something. It was easy to understand who she was. But in terms of understanding where she was mentally after all of those horrific events, that was where the work really laid for me, especially because the events or where we're seeing the film now is not directly after the events. It's 5 years later, so I had to discover like where would she be mentally 5 years later. She's not exactly where you might be the moment after an event. So did she grow in certain areas? Did she regress or revert to old characteristics in certain areas? Did she develop characteristics from, you know, people that she knows or family members because of it, as a trauma response? So aside from like still doing the work and like speaking to Damien about it, I would also like reach out to mental health facilities, watch YouTube videos, people suffering from PTSD, like researching survivor's guilt, stuff of that nature. But it was fun. It was hard, but it was fun to discover the human psyche in that way. I really enjoyed that. That was some of the most fun work that I had.
I love it. Your performance was very good.
Oh, thank you so much.
That's what I love watching her in this movie, is that you see her slowly become more and more unhinged by the end of this film, which is a big, huge plot point, too, and I think she handled that so well. It's like
I mean, she was literally doing it for like hours. Like you see moments, obviously, or in scenes, but she would just go. It was like tapping into this like well. I always say it's like was amazing to watch. I've like never seen anything like it. I work with a lot of actors, and I've never seen anything like it. Yeah.
Well, your character also started as a final girl, but she evolved.
But she did really, yeah. She took a different detour.
So, which version of Vicky do you prefer to play?
Oh, this one. Oh yeah. Well, let me. I had so much fun preparing for this. Because it was, to me, like Vicky, there's no it's black and white. There's no nuance to like, oh, maybe there's this trauma and like, which is usually what I do. I'll deep dive and it becomes very, like, heavily researched. This was like just fun. I talked to Damien, and we were trying to find a way to, you know, find something different than the usual possessions. And like, yeah, the first things you were saying was like child.
Satan. We're creating Satan, basically.
Yeah.
So it's as black,
as black as it could be. But he definitely was. We were going in the direction of like child, like manic, and I love this type of stuff. I feel like when I was a younger actor, I was always getting cast in like kind of the girlfriend or this, and it was like, okay, but this is like, it's so sadistic. And it's fun to do that because I'm not like that in normal, but
depending.
No, but it was a lot of fun. But then the caveat that I was saying, which I'm smiling because Damien it was a lot of fun preparing. And then fun in moments when I got to work with these two.
These movies are not fun to shoot.
No, okay, not Vicky. Vicky's like probably the like a very difficult prosthetic
the makeup process and how difficult it was to even just emote through what you
it was 6 to 8 hours of makeup, and I was literally blind because you were telling me that in the first movie I had no eyes. In this movie I had an eye, but it was like literally like a little hole. And yeah, it was the prosthetics took a long time to get in, to get out, and yeah, it's just the nature of just independent horror anyway is brutal. But then you add that to it, yeah.
And for Sam, like we were just talking about this, like sometimes things would come off, like if a nail would come, because she had nails. But the great thing about Sam is that she would just stay in it. Like she'd be like, all right guys, fix this, and then she was ready to go again. And that's immensely hard to just stay in character and still be positive about it when you're that uncomfortable. She absolutely
I was just laughing because I literally there was many a nail stuck in
my head, but I kept them.
That Terrifier, it began like in an indie project, and now the budget has increased, and it shows. It looks very good, this movie. But my question is, looking forward, if the franchise keeps going, the budget probably will get higher. How do you see this franchise going?
Yeah, I mean there could be pros and cons with that. There was for part 3. On one hand, I was able to hire a makeup team for the first time so I could focus on my actors and the production value and my camera department. I think technically this is the best looking film for sure. I think it's always going to be subjective as to what's everybody's favorite film. But now it was more difficult. We had to do it in a much quicker amount of time, and I have a much bigger crew, so I'm getting pulled in a million different directions. So it really depends, and we never want to lose track of what got us here in the first place. And that was one of the reasons why I sort of wanted to. I don't want to necessarily call it course correcting because I'm very proud of part 2, but it's such a tonally different film than part 1. Part 1 is a very simplistic, gritty, low-budget slasher film, and part 2. became very ambitious, and it's a completely different tone. It's more colorful, it's more fantastical. You know, consider that my Dream Warriors, you know, to make a comparison to another franchise. So you never want to just get too lost in those weeds and forget where you came from. So I think going too high with the budget could become a problem for us. So I'll always be conscious of that and making sure it sticks to its roots.
Yeah. And if the franchise is very long, do you see yourself like,
I actually want to cut that.
it's not going to be that long?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Come on, bro.
Do you see yourself like Laurie Strode in 40 years, like still playing that
He's
character?
still attacking me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'll ever escape
You'll die now.
this clown.
That's a beautiful question.
Yeah, no, yes, and what I love also.
Wait, you want to just wait till they secure that?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
might
you don't want them.
We don't. Yeah.
Be perfect. Yeah.
Hey.
No, she's an actor. She's like, things
This
falling,
is
let's go.
Terrifier.
Let's
Like,
fucking
Just
go.
camp
Yeah,
starts
this is
happening,
awesome.
we just go with
Yeah,
it.
literally.
It's like,
Yeah.
we're used to this.
Yeah.
It's like, what fell apart? Okay.
You got 10
This is fun.
seconds. to
Like,
say-
this isn't hard.
Yeah.
You don't have the sword here
Yeah.
Yeah.
Punch him in the face.
Yeah, oh god.
Sorry, I
I
almost.
get it now. I get it.
Isn't he annoying?
Yeah,
No,
he's a little shit.
He's not a little shit.
It's like, hey. I know you're trying to say something important, but hey.
Yeah, so your question was, would I be willing to come back like many years down the line?
40, for example.
I love that idea, especially because I mean, I know it's divisive in other franchises, but I love when my favorite final girls have come back. And I also think there's no age to being a badass. So I love seeing a more seasoned person that has been through a lot because they have so much more to offer, so much more life experience, and they're also so darkened and hardened from that life experience. I think they're even more badass in a lot of scenarios. So I definitely wouldn't mind coming back as an older person. And again, I would like to see more older final girls, honestly.
Me too.
Yeah.
And more Terrifier movies because I
Yeah.
enjoy them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm gonna make 100.
Yeah, oh god. Don't say that.
That was really
Thanks.
lovely. Thank you.
Gracias.
Oh yes, gracias.